Hey everybody, Sarah here. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. If you are new to this channel, welcome and thank you for tuning into this video. I upload faith-based teaching videos every Wednesday, so consider subscribing. So if you don't know, I endured what I consider to be a wilderness season from May 2015 to November of 2016. And during that time, I was not working. The Lord was really laying my foundation in Him and just purging me of a lot of things and just really, again, just laying my foundation in Him for the most part. Once I started working in November in 2016, I just knew that the wilderness season was over and that it was harvest time and that the Lord was just going to do amazing things. Not that He hasn't done amazing things, but I just knew it was about to be harvest time. So when reality slapped me in the face and I realized that I was wrong, and I was really trying to figure out what I was going to name this series and what I was going to talk about, the Lord really showed me that I was still in the wilderness. Just because I started working does not mean that God had stopped working on me and that He had stopped preparing me and that I was somehow no longer in a wilderness season. And if I can be honest, this season honestly has been a lot harder than the season that I was in previously when I wasn't working. And something that I really learned is in and of ourselves, it is hard, and I would even say impossible, to endure a wilderness or a season of preparation, because God is just doing so many things in you. He's showing you things, He's revealing things to you, He's purging you of you and just making you more like Jesus. And it can honestly be so hard to trust God in the midst of all of that. And it can be hard to not quit in the process because it's hard, or to rush ahead of God to the things that He's shown you and the things that He's placed in your heart to do. I get it. Whatever, process or season you may be in, whether that's medical school or, working that job or, living with unbelieving family members or whatever the case may be, I get it. Because there have been so many times where I have just been like, God, what are you doing? What are you doing, Jesus? And I have just gotten frustrated and been focusing on the wrong things, which have made me frustrated. And as the Lord has been taking me through this new season, the thing that's been pressing on my heart is that despite my circumstances, God's character does not change. And there is a purpose and a reason to the season that I'm in and to what He's doing in me and and everything that He's doing. Because the thing is, if I trust in God and who He says that He is, then I can trust Him when times are hard, when I'm going through an uncomfortable season, and I can just have faith in Him. My faith is not supposed to be in my circumstances, but I can trust in God in the midst of uncomfortable seasons and situations, because His character does not change. And thinking about this really reminded me of Joseph. If you don't already know, you know I love Joseph. He is one of my favorite people in the Bible, so I always kind of gravitate to him. So if you're unfamiliar with the story of Joseph, you can find it starting in Genesis 37 all the way to the end of Genesis. But here's a brief little synopsis, little rundown of what's going on, just so we're all on the same page, right? Okay, cool. Joseph was the son of Jacob, whose name was later changed to Israel. And Joseph was his favorite son because he was the firstborn of his favorite wife, Rachel. And because of that, the rest of his brothers hated him, and hated him even more when Joseph shared a prophetic dream that he had. So his brothers plotted against him, threw him in a pit, sold him to Ishmaelites, who then sold him to Egyptians. So I want to start by reading Genesis 39, and I'm going to read verses 2 through 4. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man, and he was in the house of his Egyptian master. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to succeed in his hands. So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him, and he made him overseer of his house and put him in charge of all that he had. So I want to skip down to verses 20 through 22. And Joseph's masters took him and put him into the prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined, and he was there in prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him steadfast love and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. The keeper of the prisoner paid no attention to anything that was in Joseph's charge, because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made it succeed. So though this is a narrative, a story in the Bible, I believe there are just a few things that we can learn from this. And I really pray that they are an encouragement to you as you're going through your process and your journey and whatever you want to call it. There are just a few things that I want to point out. So the first thing that I want to point out is that God is with you. So the verses that I read said 3 different times that the Lord was with Joseph. God was with him the entire time. His brothers tried to kill him. They plotted against him. He was thrown into prison because somebody lied on him, and God never left him. Through it all, God was with Joseph. Because the thing is, just no matter how hard it may get, no matter how impossible things may seem, opposition does not mean that God is not with you. Just how he never abandoned Joseph, he has not abandoned you. He will never leave you. He will never forsake you. Remember that God is with you. No matter how hard things may get, remember that God is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. And unlike Jacob, God doesn't have favorites. Don't let the enemy fool you and make you think that God is deaf or blind to your circumstances. But this is actually the complete opposite. God actually orchestrated the circumstances of your life and strategically placed you where you are right now for a reason and for a purpose. And because God was with Joseph, he was successful in everything that he did. He wasn't successful because he was so great and so gifted and so talented, but because God was with him and gave him favor. His masters even saw that the Lord was with him. And if I can be honest, that kind of convicted me a little bit and made me think, do the people that I work with see that God is with me? Is it evident by the work that I do and the attitude that I have that God is with me? You know, do I act like Jesus is walking with me? Am I being an example? Is my light shining to those that are around me? Do others see the difference that Jesus makes in our lives by the way that we work and we act? So that's just a little food for thought for you. So because God was with Joseph, he was able to prosper in all that he did. And the second thing that I want to look at is that you can prosper where you're planted. Be faithful where you're planted. As I said, Joseph prospered in all that he did wherever he was. It didn't matter to him. And he was put in charge wherever he went. Like, how are you a prisoner in charge? Where did that happen? Even in the toughest of situations, as a slave and as a prisoner, Joseph was prosperous and successful and faithful wherever he was planted. There is no biblical record of Joseph ever complaining, of him ever questioning God, of him ever being mad at God, or what have you. And of course, we can assume that he had his moments because he was human and he was in the flesh. But as I said, there's no biblical record of that ever happening. But the thing is, God strategically placed Joseph in each situation and each season to prepare him to be second in command over Egypt. Just how God strategically placed Joseph in Potiphar's house and in the prison, and even with the Israelites in Egypt, he has strategically placed each and every one of us where we are for a reason and for a season. It's not going to last forever. He has strategically placed me at the job that I'm at to learn from the amazing leaders that I have there. And I have learned quite a bit about myself, even from working there, just even them helping grow me more as a leader, and at my church, with the way that my pastor gets my whole entire life. And just the Lord is preparing me, just as the Lord has strategically placed Joseph, the way he strategically placed me. The Lord has strategically placed you where you are to prepare you for what he has in store for you. God delights in orchestrating even the most minute details of our lives. Because the thing is, this season is training ground. This is your boot camp. Where you are right now, this is boot camp. Everything Joseph learned while he was a slave, everything he learned while he was in prison was meant to prepare him. It seems crazy, but those seasons developed his skills to be able to be a leader and to lead the nation. But most importantly, it groomed his character. Because when you go back and you read chapter 37, the first couple of verses, you can see how arrogant he was when he shared that prophetic dream with his brothers. So the Lord really needed to groom his character and to humble him. And again, that's a lot of times what God has to do with us. He has to groom our character. He has to develop our skills. He has to humble us, and it's all for a purpose, and it's greater than us. Everything Joseph went through was not for him. It was for him to be able to save a whole entire nation from famine, and to be able to get his family to move to Egypt so they can stay there for 400 years to grow into a nation of their own. So the days when I get frustrated, I literally have to say, God, what are you trying to teach me and show me from this situation, from this day? What are you trying to do in me, Lord? And beyond that, God, who can I minister to while I'm here in this season, in this situation? Who can I minister to? Because again, it's bigger than you. It's not just about you. This season and the next are not all about you. Whatever season you may find yourself in, use that as an opportunity to plant and water seeds. Ministry is not just about having a mic in your hand, doing YouTube videos or whatever the case may be. Ministry is every single day of your life, and it doesn't just start or stop depending on whatever season or situation you may be. We just have to remember that God works everything for the good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. We have to trust God's word and his promises, and that goes back to what I talked about at the beginning of the year. Do we trust that God is who he says that he is, and he will be faithful to his promises? Just remember that God is always at work. And whatever Joseph went through, God was at work. Even if it doesn't seem like it, even if it doesn't feel like it, he's always at work in us and around us. So tell me in the comment sections below. So are any of you going through a wilderness season or some type of process where the Lord is preparing and pruning you in some way? Let me know in the comment sections below, and just kind of share a little bit about your season and what you believe the Lord is doing in you. I would love to hear from you guys. And if you're not in that type of season, then just let me know if you learned anything from this video. Be sure that you like this video, that you share it with someone that you believe will be blessed by it, and again, that you subscribe for new videos every single Wednesday. Grace and peace.